Good morning, folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now, streaming live to our website, app, and YouTube Live. Court proceedings getting underway in Memphis, Tennessee.
We're under a mandate of the Shelby County government, Mayor, executive order to wear a facial mask in the courtroom. It's not required under the mandate for you to wear a facial mask in the hallway or in some offices. The reason for this exception, it's a government building, it's a courtroom, and the courtroom has access to prisoners coming from the jail. So because of the COVID exposure, possible exposure to persons in the jail, persons coming from the jail into this courtroom are required to wear a facial mask, and all of us in the courtroom as well. So that's why this courtroom, as opposed to other places in the building, is required by the executive order as a protocol of the COVID-19 pandemic, that everyone in the courtroom wear a facial mask until further notice. So the defendant will be wearing a facial mask.
Following some of the reports on Twitter from local journalists in the Memphis area saying that members of Eliza Fletcher's family have now just entered the courtroom. This is live from Memphis, Tennessee. All right, so if you could face me so we can communicate better, appreciate it. I know you're wearing a facial mask, so speak as clearly as you can through your mask there, so I can understand what you're saying. We have two cases on the docket today, you do. And in one case, your name is listed here on the docket as Cleotha Abston. In the second case, they have listed it as Cleotha Abston Henderson, which is correct legally. Which is correct. Abston hyphen Henderson.
Sir? Anderson? Okay, and where does the Abston come in? Social Security. Then I'll address you that way. Mr. Abston, in your first case, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping and tampering with or fabricating evidence in a criminal case. Your bond was set by the Judicial Commissioner in that case in the amount of $500,000. In your second case, you're charged with a misdemeanor offense, theft of property with a value of $1,000 or less, identity theft, and fraudulent use or possession of a credit card. Your bond was set in that case in the amount of $10,000 by the Judicial Commissioner. You're presumed to be innocent of the charges. You have the right to have a lawyer represent you on these charges, and that is why you were asked to fill out some information for me for each case in an affidavit, similar to this one. You have two, one for each case. Raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm that the facts and the information that you are submitting in each of your affidavits concerning whether you can make bond and whether you can hire an attorney is true and correct information, sir? Make your hand down. In each of your affidavits for each case, you state that at this time you are not able to make bond, have no one to help you, and you're not able to afford a lawyer. Is that correct? Your affidavits will be filed here in each of your court jackets. And based upon your affidavits, I'm going to appoint an attorney to represent you. You'll be assigned a lawyer, appointed counsel, from the Office of the Shelby County Public Defender. I'm referring your cases today to the office and holding your cases over for a short continuance so they can assign a lawyer to represent you who will review your cases and the facts. Yes, ma'am.
The case will be my matter.
All right, you'll sign on both jackets. Ms. Jennifer Case, could you step over here and sign the jacket for me, please?
Yes, Your Honor. I will also advise the court that I'm at this time filing a motion for the restriction of extrajudicial statements of prosecution by law enforcement witnesses in the case.
You can file whatever motions you need to at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be asking the court for an order.
Just to advise you, now, if you've spoken to Mr. Hagerman, I understand that there were additional charges there forthcoming. How you want to handle this today?
I'd say a couple things, Your Honor. First, with regard to this motion, I think she said something to the effect of preparing an order. The state intends, as we always do, to comport with the ethical rules about what we can say and what we can't say. I don't understand a request or any sort of gag order at this time. This is literally the first court date.
I haven't seen it yet. There's nothing in the record right now. I haven't seen a written motion. If and when a written motion is filed, I will review it and rule on it. I understand. You'll have the opportunity to be heard.
Very good. The second thing, Your Honor, is yes, additional charges were filed this morning for murder, premeditated murder, and murder in perpetration of a kidnapping. I would expect the Judicial Commissioner to send those cases here, the clerk's office to send those cases here, as Your Honor stated. I would expect them to defer to Your Honor with regard to a bond setting on those cases. I think it would normally come to this court with no bond set, and I think it would make the most sense, just record keeping and everything else right now, to go ahead and show no bond set on this matter as well, so we get everything straight in the record.
If there's going to be any motion filed to reduce bond or set no bond or revoke bond, I want it in writing, in the record, under the statute. A bond has been set by the Judicial Commissioner at this time. That's the bond. If there's going to be any request by the defense to reduce the bond or change the bond, it must be in writing per the statute. If there's a request by the state to change the bond, increase it, revoke it, or anything like that, it must be in writing. So if you'll file your motion to have it in the record, then we can deal with that. It's not before me right now. The case is not in front of me, and it requires a written motion by counsel for the defense, for the state, to file a written motion if there's going to be a change in bail. All right? Thank you. Appreciate that. Now, I'm assuming, now we can't assume that the clerk's office is going to assign the case to this courtroom. I'll have to ask them to specifically do that. Unfortunately, too many times when cases are pending in one courtroom and a person's charged, the clerk assigns it to who's next on the assignment. So I'll have to make a phone call down to the clerk's office and request that they set the case if the charge has been filed. Set those cases with the new charges in this court. They'll be on the docket in the morning. So I don't know if you want to hold this for the morning.
I would also ask that perhaps the court hear our motion tomorrow. I just filed a written motion.
Well, I'll take it up if and when it's filed and give the state an opportunity to look at it, read it, and see if they want to respond to it in writing. So let's don't do oral motions on the first day. Let's don't do that. Let it get it before the court in a proper status, proper way to consider any motions, okay? We'll take this up in the morning, and I'm assuming that the other case will be on the docket. It's not before me right now. This is all hearsay. I'm hearing this from somebody else. I want it in the record. I want it before me before I make any rulings on anything like that. All right? We'll hold this for tomorrow morning. Now, show this forward report with the appointment of counsel. You did sign on this, guy? September 7th, for a report back date. I understand there's other charges forthcoming. Hopefully they'll be in this court tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. We'll take it up at that time. Thank you. Thank you all very much for your cooperation. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
A live look inside the courtroom as folks file out following the arraignment. Cleotha Abston, seen there in the center of your screen. Coverage coming your way in moments.
Requests were not filed. This is the first appearance, and I waive that. But this is a copy of the order that I signed allowing the Daily Memphis, who's represented, to have access to the case. It's print media, not video. If you have any objection to any video under Rule 30, you can file that for the court to hear more. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here is J.B. Buno.
The body of abducted jogger Eliza Fletcher is found, and the suspect charged with first-degree murder. We have the latest on the death of the beloved mother and teacher in Memphis, Tennessee. Hey there, folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. This is a story that so many people were just refreshing Twitter and social media platforms, looking for any updates of any kind. And the update, of course, that we get this morning, the most heartbreaking of all, starting with the tweet that was put out by Memphis Police a short time ago, and I will read that tweet as follows. The deceased victim that was located yesterday, that being Sunday, in the 1600 block of Victor Street has been identified as 34-year-old Eliza Fletcher. Additional charges for 38-year-old Cleotha Abston have been added for first-degree murder and first-degree murder in perpetration of kidnapping. A short time ago, what you just saw here live on WFLA Now, and we'll go back here live so that everybody can see. This is the live feed from our sister station, WREG. There is a lot of media personnel inside this courtroom for this arraignment. We'll monitor this feed and see if we have anything else to show you here. But the charges are upgraded to first-degree murder and first-degree murder and perpetration of kidnapping, in addition to the abduction charge and other charges that we, of course, had on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, over the weekend. So this is live from the courtroom in Memphis, Tennessee. We will come back to this if there's any press conferences that take place. As we understand it, the family of Eliza Fletcher was in the courtroom for this arraignment. I'm sure an extraordinarily difficult ordeal, given that this all just happened over the weekend. This happening, the abduction occurring early Friday morning when Eliza Fletcher went out for a jog, part of her normal routine when she was abducted. Video evidence showed that there was somebody pulling up in an SUV, forcing her into that vehicle. Authorities say that that man is Cleotha Abston, 38 years old, who has a criminal history that includes abduction in the past. We're going to get into that in a little bit. I want to let you know the very latest on this story is on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. You can also go check out our sister station doing a phenomenal job on this story, WREG in Memphis, Tennessee. They've been working this story nonstop since it broke on Friday morning. And this being such a gut-wrenching story for the Memphis community, something as simple as a mother going for a jog early in the morning, doing so for, of course, her schedule, doing so really early in the morning. Of course, the challenges that come with being a mom, being a teacher, just trying to get in some routine exercise when it went drastically wrong as the result of a abduction that would take place early that morning. And we now know that the body that was found yesterday, that I was tweeting about last night, the body that was found not too far away from the actual scene of the abduction, that body was confirmed this morning to be that of 34-year-old Eliza Fletcher. Where this goes from here, of course, this now goes from a missing persons case, an abduction case, to a case for justice, a case of justice for Eliza Fletcher. And authorities believe that they have the person responsible. And we're talking about Cleotha Abston here, again, 38 years old, who I'm going to read this because so much has been dug up about Abston's criminal history, and it is an extensive criminal history, including doing serious time more than 20 or so years ago, being, and I want to make sure I have this here correctly from my notes, in 2000, Cleotha Abston was charged and he was later convicted of kidnapping Memphis attorney Kemper Durand as he was walking home from a party on Beale Street, driving the lawyer around in his trunk and then forcing him to get money from an ATM. That same lawyer, Mr. Durand, has been linked to Eliza Fletcher's family. If I remember correctly from my notes, Kemper Durand passed away in 2013. Abston was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He was released in 2018, according to, again, WREG. Reading some other notes here from REG, again, really leaning on our sister station here to provide us with this information. Abston worked for a cleaning service. In fact, it was his boss who described to police that the vehicle Abston had been driving at the time of the abduction taking place, and it did, in fact, match the one that police saw on video of the abduction. I have not yet seen, and the acoustics were really difficult, and of course, because of COVID rules and masks being worn inside the courtroom, it was very difficult to hear. If you thought it was difficult to hear what was being said in the courtroom, I thought it was difficult to hear as well. I can only imagine that there's going to be no bond amount set for that he's going to be held without bond is Cleotha Abston, but I am awaiting on official confirmation from our reporters in the room there at WREG. Again, a extremely difficult story, and the scene at the discovery of Eliza Fletcher's remains is still active. This is not too far away, within half a mile or so of where authorities say Cleotha Abston was seen giving his vehicle and his clothing a pretty good cleaning, a pretty thorough cleaning, which of course is a troubling indicator and an indicator that that police have put out to the public in relation to the aftermath of the abduction taking place. So a difficult story, one I know that our commenters have quite a lot to say about. I want to get to some of the commenters. If you're joining us on YouTube Live, if you're joining us on Facebook Live, I'll do my very best to start taking your questions and comments here in just a minute. But again, I want to communicate this because for a lot of folks who are just joining us and perhaps, again, we're just figuring out about this story or learning of this story over the weekend, this is, again, a beloved mother, teacher, family member who went missing on Friday. It would turn out missing from a jog. Turns out that she was abducted, and police would eventually discover video evidence of that abduction taking place, an SUV pulling up, and her being forced inside that SUV. A big search then, of course, taking place for that SUV, as we talked about a moment ago. That SUV connected to the 38-year-old suspect, Cleotha Abston, and that arrest was made over the weekend. But the grim discovery, the one that was so heart-sinking, was, of course, the discovery of remains last night, or yesterday evening's Monday evening on Labor Day. And it wasn't until this morning that we actually had the confirmation that the remains were that of the woman that the entire Memphis community and the greater Memphis area have been looking for, and that being abducted jogger Eliza Fletcher. Just going to stay here with our sister station and just make sure that there isn't any notes that I am missing as I try to communicate to you the very latest. And I don't believe so. Again, the charges are first-degree murder and murder in perpetration of kidnapping, added to the original charges, which included kidnapping and theft. Was this a crime of opportunity? Was this a targeted incident based on a routine? All of these questions are going to be asked. There haven't been many opportunities, as I understand it, in the form of press conferences or media availabilities. In fact, I was curious as to whether or not there was going to be a press conference this morning with an update. And what is the reason for a press conference? Well, a press conference gives members of the media, such as myself, an opportunity to ask important follow-up questions, community questions that very much matter in a case like this. Was this a crime of opportunity? Do authorities believe that this was a targeted incident based on this person running by themselves early in the morning? Or was there a specific reason that Eliza Fletcher was targeted other than it just being an opportunity for somebody who was looking to prey on somebody alone? These are questions that we hope to get answered, but this has been, of course, a story and an investigation that has been challenging, to say the least, because of it all transpiring within a 72-hour window. All of this starting, not something that has been going on for weeks. This is something that began just a few days ago. We'll get into some of the comments, some of the questions here in just a moment. In fact, let's start by paying attention to here's how this works, folks. For those of you who have been with us on live stream before, if you use hashtag HeyJB, I can feature your comment out of the Facebook Live and YouTube Live comment section. And I will start now looking for your questions and your comments. Keep in mind that what I have gone over the last, 15 minutes or so, this is a lot of what we know at this time. And there's a considerable amount of information that we don't know. But if you use hashtag HeyJB, I can feature your question, your comment. Maybe you just want to give a little bit of support to the Fletcher family, seen there, reading out a statement, pleading with the public for any help, trying to do everything that they could, including establishing a reward amount. And I believe it was in the tens of thousands of dollars. It might have been $50,000, a reward amount, begging, pleading with the public for any information, trying to get the word out. Families know that when they have a missing loved one, it's a race against the clock. And those first couple of days are so vitally important to finding a loved one safe and sound. And so the family, of course, doing everything that they could within their power to bring home Eliza Fletcher alive. And of course, she was found deceased not too far away from the scene of the abduction. Etheria, hashtag HeyJB. We'll start here with this one. Again, if you use the hashtag underneath my name on the left side of your screen on the yellow stripe, I can animate your comments on screen. Who kidnaps a woman randomly at 4-something a.m. without being tipped off? Again, we don't know exactly what the motive is. Now, there is the charge of theft. There is of course, that charge being included. Was this a crime? And let's not forget the case 22 years ago with Kemper Durand, the attorney from Tennessee, who was abducted by Cleotha Abston and stuffed in the trunk, forced into the trunk, and then let out of the trunk by Abston to get money from an ATM. So that was a crime where the motive appeared to be financially motivated. So was this a crime where Cleotha Abston was looking to profit, steal a credit card, a debit card, cash? Or was there something more sinister at play? Not too many words, of course, uttered by Abston in this arraignment this morning. But of course, this is a fair question, and one I'm sure that, I want to get to Ava's comment. #HeyJB, what is the highest of court can this go? I would need an attorney to answer that question. This case did not ever leave the Memphis jurisdiction. This is a case that is going to be handled primarily with Memphis law enforcement, with the attorney's office there in Memphis, in Memphis courtrooms. This is not going to get escalated to a federal case, as I understand it. This did not cross state lines. This didn't even really cross county lines. So this is going to be handled in Memphis, Tennessee. Linda Fontaine, #HeyJB. This is a very key question, and I'm glad somebody asked. Do we know yet if anyone else is involved? And this is something, again, that members of the media, if there was a press conference, we could ask these types of questions, because what happened in the aftermath of the abduction? Where did Cleotha Abston go? When and where did the murder take place? Was Eliza Fletcher brought somewhere alive? Was somebody there? Did somebody see her? Was somebody an accomplice in any way, shape, or form? Did anybody see her and fail to contact law enforcement? Or was this done solely by one individual here on the right side of your screen? This is a very important question. And hopefully, and I'll just say that I think that press conferences are good opportunities for us to get these types of questions at least asked and perhaps answered. So maybe if we have a press conference at some point in this case in the hours or days ahead, we'll do our very best, of course, to stream that for you live on WFLA.com and, of course, across all of our various social media platforms. Again, hello to everybody joining us on Facebook and YouTube as well. Looking for some other comments. So this is very interesting as well. And I don't want to... Of course, there are going to be theories abound with a story of this magnitude. We have seen it with other stories about once we have a high-profile case, and this has risen to the level of a high-profile case, there are going to start to be questions that are asked that we don't know how rooted in reality they are. Could they have some semblance to reality? Yeah, but we don't know at this time. And this is why media availability is so important for local law enforcement agencies or state investigative agencies, just to provide us with information, to provide clarity so that there aren't all of these questions out there that may not be rooted in reality. But let me get to True Crime Junkies question, or at least comment. #HeyJB, I think that this was a planned kidnapping since her family has money. It has been widely reported that Eliza Fletcher's family is wealthy, considerably wealthy. And if this was a crime of opportunity, was this, or could this have been, this question is being asked online. It's on every social media platform. Is there a chance that Eliza Fletcher was targeted based on her connection to her family's wealth? And we're looking here again at the statement that was read, and you see there the picture on the wall behind the folks there as that statement was being read, and you saw the picture there of Eliza. This is an important question to determining what led to such a frightening occurrence for the Memphis community. I'll get into this more later, perhaps when we are streaming solely. Well, we'll see exactly where our stream takes us. It depends, of course, on our stream audience. But there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of parents who will exercise early in the morning and do so before the sun comes up. And this, of course, is so troubling to think about. And I've heard, of course, all of the talk online about how this is a cautionary tale but I want to make it clear as to how common it is for parents and teachers and anybody who has a schedule that makes it really challenging to exercise at other portions on different sections of the day, different periods over the course of the day. For a lot of folks, including Eliza, it is just more, it's easier for them to exercise early in the morning, even before the sun comes up. So this is a story that a lot of folks in Memphis and of course the state of Tennessee and beyond are asking about what contributed to this. And we'll try to focus more on that a little bit later on. Let's see here. Let's pivot if we can. I'm going to try to bring up now. Let's go over to Facebook Live for a moment and say hello to our Facebook Live audience and load up as many Facebook comments on screen and try to answer some questions, be a source for good information, and talk to you about what we know, what we don't know, and fill everybody in on the latest with this extraordinarily just troubling story. So saying hello to the folks on Facebook. This is a very good question. Asking, and hold on, there's a lot of comments coming through. We're going to start here with John Monroe. Hashtag HeyJB from him. Does Memphis, Tennessee have the death penalty? As I understand it, and I have not reported in Tennessee. I've reported in a lot of states. I have not been a local news reporter in Tennessee. So you have to forgive me if I'm a little bit, if I'm not as well versed in the laws of Tennessee. But as I'm looking at it here, that right now executions have been halted in the state of Tennessee. They are currently paused. Now, whether or not that will, I believe that the death penalty and executions in general in Tennessee, that's currently in a state of review. But right now, we have first-degree murder as the most serious charge for Cleotha Abston. And so I want to also make this clear, too. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I believe it's Cleotha Abston. He also might go by Cleo as short. This is a good question. I'm not familiar with the neighborhood, Lori, but Lori asking, was this considered a dangerous area that she was jogging in? I'm not from the area. No, this is not considered to be, to my understanding, this was not considered to be a highly dangerous area. This is not too far away, of course, from where she lived, from where she worked. And again, I believe it's St. Mary's Episcopal School is the school that she worked at. Yeah, it's a private school. All in this South Memphis community. And as I understand it, it was not. But look, I don't live in that neighborhood. In fact, there are people who live in Tennessee that might not know. You only know a neighborhood if you frequently go there, or if you know somebody that lives there, or if you live there yourself. You just don't know if a place is considered to be that dangerous unless you have a direct connection to it in some way. You can't Google search or look on Google Maps to see where areas are dangerous for people to run, or where where areas are just considered dangerous in general, where there's a higher crime rate. I mean, look, you could do your homework online and find and and do a search to find a more thorough spread of information as to where the most dangerous communities are in the county in which you reside or the county in which you work. But to my understanding, this was not a highly dangerous area to be running in, and also something not anything out of the ordinary from what Eliza Fletcher would do. Staying with Facebook Live here for a second, Lori. Hopefully that was at least a little bit helpful. And again, it's got to have the hashtag for me to be able to address it or bring it up on screen. This is an excellent question from Erica. We'll go to Erica Ellis on Facebook Live. Hashtag AJB. How long will it take to get results from her autopsy? We were just talking about this with the Cassie Carley story. And Cassie Carley, they're still awaiting autopsy results out of Alabama. Despite the fact that she went missing out of Florida, her remains were found in Alabama. And Alabama is just a little bit more backlogged. And also, as a result of state resources, their window for getting autopsy results back are considerably longer than if, of course, she was found in the state of Florida. But the remains being found in Alabama means that Alabama is conducting the lab work. So how long is it right now for Tennessee to get autopsy results? I don't know. But what I will say is that if there is an obvious sign as to an obvious cause of death, it is somewhat common for law enforcement to release what is called a preliminary cause of death. A preliminary cause of death is a cause of death that is released before an autopsy is completed, before toxicology results come back. It is somewhat common when you have a obvious cause of death to get a preliminary cause of death from law enforcement. Because look, if somebody who falls victim to drowning and their body is found at the bottom of a lake, it's going to be pretty clear to law enforcement that that person died of drowning. And they can release that as a preliminary cause of death. However, some cases are far more complicated. So the remains that were found not too far away from the abduction itself in Memphis, Tennessee, we don't know the extent of we don't know in what condition the remains were found in. That, of course, is extremely difficult information in respects to the family. And so the family, again, in a tremendous state of grieving, in a tremendous state of mourning. And again, we don't know if the remains were found in a really highly deteriorated state, if it was a grisly discovery. It really depends on so many different factors. But we can look, this family deserves answers. I think the Memphis community deserves answers. But it really depends on the condition in which the remains were found and how obvious it is as to the cause of death. What will happen, I'm just speaking in generalities here, what will happen is if a body is found and law enforcement find several gunshot wounds, law enforcement's going to feel at least a little bit more comfortable putting out a preliminary cause of death as if it was just something that was a little bit more ambiguous as far as the discovery of the remains. Lynn Owens, I was not a reporter 20 years ago, but I'll do my very best. And I'll get to Autumn's comment as well. Let's just start with Autumn, actually, really quickly. Autumn, hashtag HAV, do you have footage? Or were we live from court this morning? We did have a live feed of the arraignment of, on the right side of your screen, Cleotha Abston, 38 years old. That's where we began our live stream. If you're looking for that arraignment, that included the new charges of first-degree murder and first-degree, what was it? Again, I want to make sure that I'm not misspeaking. First-degree murder and perpetration of kidnapping. That is the beginning of this live stream. Just rewind, go to the beginning of the live stream, and you will find the arraignment for Abston. The other comment that we had, again, just sticking with Facebook Live, we'll go back to YouTube Live here in just a second. Lynn Owens, hashtag AJB. What was the connection of the other attorney to this family? So, again, in 2000, Kemper Duran was an attorney, Memphis attorney, walking home when he was abducted by Cleotha Abston. And that was a case that landed Abston in jail or he was sentenced to 20 years. He was released 2 years early in 2018. And it would appear that the motive of this, now the connection to the other attorney, it appears that the motive in that case was financial, because he forced him into the trunk and then out of the trunk to get money from an ATM. But I'd like to do a little bit more reading up on Kemper Duran's case. Mr. Duran, as I understand it, passed away several years ago. Reading some other comments, just doing one more check of comments here on Facebook Live. I don't know the answer to your question, Tiffany. I'll have to do a little bit more research. Caitlin, I have not seen that video. Let's just quickly get to these two. Caitlin Elmore, hashtag KJB, can you see the footage? There have been screen grabs that I have seen, the footage available to the public. I would imagine that footage is not going to be made available to the public. Until it comes out in a court of law, it's not something that I expect to come out. There's a screen grab of her jogging. I don't expect that footage to be released, especially now that her remains have been found. There's, from a law enforcement perspective, there is little to no reason to release that. Evidence like that, visual evidence, is usually put out by law enforcement for a very specific reason, and the most common reason of all is to find a suspect or find a missing person. And now that we have a suspect in custody and we have the remains of the victim found, it's just, it would be extraordinarily surprising if any footage of the abduction is released. If anything, it only causes harm and harm to the family. You do not underscore the power of social media. And when a video gets put out there, that's it. It's permanent on the internet. You will always be able to find that video. So law enforcement agencies take it very, very seriously when it comes to releasing video in a high-profile case such as this, or even a non-high-profile case. George Davis, hashtag AJB, do you know if she caused him any injuries in the struggle? I did not see any obvious injuries to Abston in the arraignment. Any scratches or any bruises or anything to that nature. He was wearing a mask, and it was a profile shot. It was difficult. He did walk in towards us, but no obvious signs of any injury. We'll stay here on, we'll stay on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live as we continue to bring you this story, folks. The story of the arraignment of now murder suspect. It went from abduction suspect to murder suspect, with the tragic news this morning that the remains of Eliza Fletcher were found not too far away from the scene of the weekend abduction that occurred, that has really frightened and startled the Memphis community. It's as something as simple as going for a run in the morning before work, before having to, of course, send your kids off to school and so on and so forth, all the responsibilities of the day. I know some folks that do early morning jogging. I am not one of them. I'm not enough of a morning person to be able to jog that early in the morning. Some people are built for it. I am not. But I will say that I do have conversations with people that do exercise routinely at that, that early in the morning. And it's done for a lot of, especially in Florida, it's done for a very obvious reason. In Florida, it's cooler. It is just, and when we're talking about the heat of August, it is way more comfortable to run outside and get in your exercise and feel good about it in the morning, even before the sun comes up, than it is to do so, let's say, when you get home from work, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock, when it's really hot and the sun is still out, even at 6:30, 7 o'clock right now. So, and also too, that's dinner time. Some folks some folks that run in the morning, they do so for that reason. It's just the most, it's the easiest time of day for them to get that done and not have to worry about other responsibilities interfering. Exercise is all about routine, and routine is about carving out a section of your day that you can dedicate to exercise routinely. And so this was part of the routine, as I understand it, for Eliza Fletcher. I would love the answer to this question. Just hopping back to Facebook for one more second. This is, again, I can only hope that Memphis Police decide on a press conference. The reporters in that market, in Memphis, in Tennessee, national news correspondents, they have these questions. And so was there any worry or concern? If there's video, so real quick before I go off on this, was he stalking her is the question here from Lisa. And if there's video evidence that was gathered of this struggle next to the SUV when Eliza Fletcher was forced into that SUV, is there any other video evidence from days prior that shows an SUV matching that description also following Eliza Fletcher on these runs? These are important questions. Was there a pattern to set this up, or was the alleged abductor and the alleged murderer here driving down the street and it was just a quick crime of opportunity? Getting over to YouTube Live and saying hello again to our YouTube Live audience. Oh, that might be true. Did they just announce that? Look at that. Just announced 4 minutes ago. Thank you to our YouTube commenters for alerting me. 10:30 a.m. Memphis Police holding a press conference in regards to the Eliza Fletcher case. We are expected to also hear from Shelby County's DA and other branches of law enforcement. So yes, I'm glad to see that Memphis law enforcement is calling a press conference, because there's just so many. Clearly, look at your comments. I mean, there's so many questions. And these are valid questions, by the way. All these questions that we are bringing up, these are all the questions that are only natural to assume. Even the one that was in a gray area as far as our, we try to stay rooted in reality on these live streams and social media, and so many sections of social media kind of, drift from reality a bit. But even the question that one of the, I think it was True Crime Junkie on YouTube asked, is her family's wealth connected to any of this whatsoever? That is still a very valid question, and a question that I would expect to get asked at a press conference like this. We are going to stay here with you live on WFLA Now, and we're going to do so until 10:30 to be able to bring you this press conference, and hopefully we have a feed up shortly. So I want to just confirm the exact time and location of this. So yeah, it's obviously, we are Eastern time. The time now is just about to turn over to 11 o'clock a.m. this Tuesday, September 6th, 2022. Memphis, Tennessee Central Time. That means we are half an hour away from this press conference. We are going to stay here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now. And until that press conference gets underway. I believe for Facebook Live, we are going to have to restart our live stream. Yes, we are going to have to, I'm just confirming with our team here. So let me explain how this is going to work. and this is how live streaming works. We're going to stay here with you live on YouTube. Hello to you, by the way, from the Stream Center. So we're going to stay here with you live on YouTube and on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. If you are watching on one of those platforms, you can stay with us. We're going to continue to talk about Eliza Fletcher and that tragic story and Cleotha Abston's arrest over the next half hour leading up to this 10:30 a.m. press conference. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, Facebook streaming works different. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be ending this live stream and engaging with a new audience with a new post, a new live stream post coming your way right at 10:30. What I'll do is I will take the live stream link if you want to join us over on YouTube. And what I'll do is I will put this directly in the comment section on the WFLA YouTube page. Again, we are going to be streaming the press conference at 10:30 on Facebook, 10:30 Central Time, 11:30 Eastern. However, it's going to be in the new live stream post that's coming your way in about 25 to 30 or so minutes. So to Facebook Live, you can join us on YouTube or click on the next live stream that you see pop up on your screens. Guys, we're taking a 5-minute break. We'll be back here in just a moment on WFLA Now. Back here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now, streaming to our website, our app, and YouTube Live. What I've been doing over the last several minutes that you might have seen were, of course, working with our great reporting teams and our camera crews in Memphis, Tennessee. This was a press conference that was announced within the last 15 or so minutes and is set for 20 minutes from now. As far as press conferences go, that's a relatively short window. So the crews in Memphis, Tennessee are scrambling to get in position so that you, wherever you're watching from, can watch that press conference live. We're working on organizing our coverage and making sure that our feeds are coming through over the various technologies, such as satellite, trying to do everything that we can to get you that feed. And we're very confident we'll be able to get it to you. But right now, it's just all of those camera crews that are scrambling to get in position for this press conference in just a little bit. I'll be back with you in another 90 seconds to begin resume our live streaming coverage here on WFLA Now. You can start to file in your hashtag HJB questions and comments. I will get to the ones that you're typing in right now, coming up here in about a minute and a half. All right, folks, JB back here with you live on WFLA Now, live from the Stream Center. Wherever you're watching from, good morning to you. It has not been a good start to the week as far as the news out of Memphis, Tennessee. Eliza Fletcher dead as a result of murder, and a suspect, 38-year-old Cleotha Abston, has been charged with first-degree murder and first-degree. Again, this charge, I'm going to make sure that I have this charge just permanently on my screen because it's just not an average or normal charge. It's first-degree murder and first-degree murder in perpetration of kidnapping. Extraordinarily serious felonies charged against Cleotha Abston for, again, missing jogger or previously reported missing jogger, Eliza Fletcher. A difficult story, and we'll start to take, as we await the 11:30 a.m. press conference, 10:30 Central Time, 11:30 Eastern, that press conference is going to begin in about 15 minutes. We have been organizing with all of our teams in Memphis to make sure that we can bring you this press conference. Try to, of course, stay in touch with all of the hardworking teams on the ground in Memphis. They are scrambling to get into position. A lot of those news crews, they were at the arraignment at the courthouse for Cleotha Abston, and now they're repositioning over to Memphis Police for this press conference. So it's just a lot of moving parts right now. That's why I had to take a bit of an extended break. Please forgive me as we're trying to get everything organized for you. Let's get to some of the comments that, let's start here with Sassafras Kath. Hashtag AJB. Did you say that Cleotha was, or Cleotha was wearing a mask? He was wearing a mask during the arraignment. That's what I was talking about as far as somebody was asking, did he have any markings, injuries, obvious injuries on him? And it was hard to see because of it being a mostly profile shot and him wearing a mask too. So any injuries to his face, it was difficult to see. But we can also review the video and take a closer look if there's any obvious signs of a struggle taking place. Audrey, I will do that. Audrey saying, can you please give us a recap before the presser for those of us who came in late? I will do that here in just a minute. Nick Rose, was there a ransom? No. There was no ransom. And normally this would be considered a question that would be really, really far away and from reality. But this question, because of her connections to a very wealthy family and being part of a very wealthy family, this question is going to pop up online. And so, but no, there has been no word of any ransom, and that being a motive of any kind to ransom her for money. But there has been just a scarce amount of information to this point. We've gotten, nuggets from law enforcement and from the hardworking reporters on the ground covering this story. But as far as there being a plethora of information, that has eluded us to this point. And we can only hope that coming up here at 11:30, a lot of these questions get answered. Katie Jean, hashtag HGB, do you think that this kidnapping was a crime of opportunity? What is my gut feeling? I'm not going to stray from fact, Katie. I appreciate your you asking me that question. I'll say this: evil is very real in the world, and it's important to remember that evil is real. And when evil looks to find a way, evil usually will find a way. And this was somebody who, again, based on the allegations, based on the information that we have, and based on the hard work by Memphis law enforcement, this is somebody who committed an act of evil and something that was not accidental. This is something that was deliberately done to harm an individual who, by all accounts, loving, considerate, kind, generous, and just a phenomenal human being, by all accounts, from what we're hearing. So, was it a crime of opportunity? I'll just say it was a crime of evil. And not all crimes are crimes of evil. There are crimes that are committed in this world where it's negligence or poor circumstances. If somebody is behind the wheel of a car and they make a wrong turn, or they didn't see somebody in their blind spot and they collide into somebody and they kill that person on the side of the road or at a busy intersection, let's say, that is likely going to be, prosecuted as a crime that you were negligent behind the wheel and you committed. But that person behind the wheel, in this instance that I'm making up for you, is extraordinarily, remorseful and cannot believe it was an accident that claimed someone else's life. That's not, to me, an act of evil. This is a case of evil. of somebody purposely and with intent and planning to some extent. To some extent, it might not have been extended planning. We don't know how much thought went into this, how premeditated this was. But there was an individual who authorities say is Cleotha Abston who got out of his vehicle, forced a woman who was just jogging around her neighborhood into that vehicle, and now she's dead. And he's been charged with murder. That, to me, is a deliberate act and an act of evil. So, crime of opportunity, I don't know yet. Hopefully we get more information, but this is proof and a sobering reminder that evil is very real in this world, and and monsters come in all different shapes and forms. Yeah, Daisy, very well aware. It's on the bottom of your screen. Police press conference in Eliza Fletcher murder. That is coming up in a short time. Again, news crews are scrambling to get into position for the 11:30 press conference. In fact, what is this that just popped up? Stand by. There's again, yes, that's it. I got it. Tuning in the shot now. Stand by. All right. We now have a shot of the press conference. Again, this is live from Memphis, Tennessee. And let's bring it up for you now.
WFLA Now will begin momentarily. WFLA Now will begin momentarily. Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JB Buno.
Memphis authorities call a press conference to announce new details in the murder of Eliza Fletcher, a jogger abducted Friday morning. Her remains found Monday evening, with a suspect now arraigned and charged with first-degree murder. Hello there to you folks. JB here with you live on WFLA now re-engaging our audience across all platforms for a press conference that, as we understand it, is moments away from happening. So if you're just filing in, whether you're here on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, on WFLA.com, or the WFLA app, this press conference is about to get underway, a long-awaited press conference for Memphis Police and Memphis authorities to let us know what the latest is in the Eliza Fletcher murder investigation. That press conference currently, as you see here on the right side of your screen, is about to get underway. So let's take you there live and await the Memphis authorities coming out of the building there on the right side of your screen to give us an update as to what has happened in the Eliza Fletcher investigation. I'll be back in 30 seconds with the latest. Again, for those of you just joining us here on WFLA Now, we're live on Facebook a little bit early. We're still live on YouTube Live to give you an opportunity to hear at the very beginning of this press conference on the murder of Eliza Fletcher, a jogger abducted Friday morning in Memphis, Tennessee. The suspect in the case, 38-year-old Cleotha Abston, was arraigned this morning on now upgraded additional charges of first-degree murder, in addition to kidnapping and theft. As a story that a lot of people are focused in on, how a mother can go for an early morning jog, 4:30 or so in the morning, be abducted, and then found dead just days later. This has got a lot of folks just swirling for answers, trying to figure out exactly how this was able to happen, especially when you have somebody that did 18 years behind bars for abduction, for an abduction that occurred in the year 2000. Press conference about to get underway. As we were just talking about with our YouTube Live audience, there are just a lot of questions that still remain in this story, how this was able to happen. But in the aftermath of the abduction, which again was caught on video, police having video of the moment where Eliza Fletcher was on her early morning jog, a pretty normal morning for her, again, a beloved mother and teacher in the Memphis area, when an SUV pulls up. Somebody forces her inside that SUV, as mic checks are getting done here. Forces her inside that SUV, and then they vanish. What happened after that, and how did Eliza Fletcher be discovered? Her remains discovered Monday evening, deceased? We'll find out now.
Good. All right. I think we're ready. Good morning. Today is a very sad day in the city of Memphis. First, I'd like to express our sincere condolences to the family, friends, and numerous others who have been impacted by the tragic and heinous kidnapping of Eliza Fletcher. Yesterday evening, September 5th, at approximately 5:07 p.m., the Memphis Police Department and other law enforcement partners discovered the remains of a human body, in the rear of a vacant duplex apartment at the 1600 block of Victor Street. At that time, it was believed the unidentified body could possibly be the remains of kidnapping victim Eliza Fletcher. Further forensic investigation by the MPD traffic unit positively identified the body was, in fact, Eliza Fletcher. This finding marked the culmination of a 4-day intensive investigation incorporating a robust search and rescue effort and the timely arrest of suspect Cleotha Abston on September 3rd, the day following the kidnapping. Cleotha Abston has been charged by MPD homicide investigators with the following state charges: first-degree murder and perpetration of kidnapping, especially aggravated kidnapping, and tampering with evidence. In addition, Abston has been charged with the following unrelated offenses: identity theft, theft of property, and credit card fraud. While the outcome of this investigation is not what we hoped for, we are nonetheless pleased to remove this dangerous predator off the streets of Memphis. I'd like to personally thank the professional and highly skilled men and women of the Memphis Homicide Unit, the Memphis Police Department, the FBI, the U.S. Marshals, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, the Shelby County Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney General's Office, Homeland Security, the ATF, and the University of Memphis Police Department for your relentless efforts and many contributions toward this investigation. The collaboration and cooperation amongst all of our partner agencies was nothing less than symphonic. We are also very grateful for the hundreds of tips that came through our Crime Stoppers and other platforms from our citizens at large. Our engaged and supportive community is truly our most valued asset. Just remember that this still is an ongoing investigation. At this time, I would like to bring up FBI Special Agent in Charge, Doug Kornesky.
Good morning. First and foremost, on behalf of the FBI, I want to extend the extreme sympathy and condolences of our office to the family and friends of Eliza. While most of us did not know her prior to this tragedy, through the course of the recent investigation, we got a small glimmer into the light that she was to her family and friends and community. Next, I just want to commend the immense collaborative efforts of the local, state, and federal law enforcement during this investigation. As the family knows, every possible resource that we had as a law enforcement community, to include the FBI, was brought to bear to both find Eliza and her perpetrator and hold him accountable. And as simply last, I just want to thank the community for their support during this investigation, the many tips and leads that we received. We are a member of this community as well, and this situation, this tragedy impacts us deeply as well. So with that, I just again want to thank the community. Next, I will be followed by the Acting Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Ali Roberts from ATF.
First, on behalf of ATF, I'd like to extend our deepest condolences to the family and friends affected by this tragedy. No resources were spared to locate and arrest the individual responsible for this incomprehensible violent crime. ATF utilized resources such as assigning special agents, our canine, and utilizing the E-Trace database. We also utilize our expertise as we work with our state and local partners to bring about justice to the family and friends in reference to this tragedy. I would like to bring next up U.S. Marshal Tyrese Miller.
Thank you. Good afternoon. On behalf of the United States Marshal Service, we certainly want to extend our sincere condolences to the family of Eliza Fletcher, her friends and family, and those that knew her. As I understand it, she touched many lives, and it's certainly a loss. As I've said on numerous occasions, the Marshal Service has a very unique relationship with the Memphis Police Department. At any time they call, we're there to assist. We were glad to receive that call on Saturday when a suspect had been identified. We then went about finding the suspect vehicle in question, as well as the suspect himself. He was spotted, the vehicle was spotted at the apartment complex, and we also conducted surveillance on him. And then when he tried to make a move, we went in and made the arrest safely, and took him into custody and turned him over to the custody of the Memphis Police Department. And after that, we also participated in the search efforts to find Ms. Fletcher all day Sunday and all day Monday. And as has been stated, it was not the outcome we were looking for. We were dedicated and committed to continue those search efforts and assist our partners until she was found. Next, I will turn it over to District Attorney General Steve Mulroy.
Thank you. Good morning. I also want to add my condolences and the condolences of my office to the family of Eliza Fletcher. To lose someone so young and so vital is a tragedy in and of itself, but to have it happen in this way with a senseless act of violence, it's unimaginable. And we express our deepest condolences. We're praying for them. I'm praying for Eliza, and I'm praying for the family. With respect to the family, both law enforcement and our office was in contact with the family throughout this long weekend. They have been fully cooperative throughout that entire process, and in contrast to whatever baseless speculation you might have seen, we have no reason to think this was anything other than an isolated attack by a stranger. With respect to the family, we were in touch with them, as I said, throughout the course of the weekend. I visited with the family personally over the weekend. I also visited them this morning when we had terrible news to deliver to them. And I have a message from the family that I want to express to all of you, the public, but also the media. Please respect their privacy. Please allow them to grieve. At an appropriate time, they will be making a statement. I believe a written statement will be forthcoming, but we really do ask that you avoid intrusive questioning and respect their privacy. I also want to take this opportunity to commend all of law enforcement, the people behind me and all the agencies they represent. I had the opportunity to go to the command center over the course of the weekend, and I saw with my own eyes the seamless cooperation among all of them. Chief Davis referred to it a moment ago as symphonic. I think that's an entirely appropriate adjective. I watched myself how they cooperated, and I was very impressed with the speed with which they developed leads, the speed with which they turned around test results, the diligence in which they coordinated the search efforts. They're all to be commended. As for our office, the defendant was arraigned this morning on charges of kidnapping and tampering with evidence. He'll be arraigned tomorrow morning on new charges that we now have to bring of first-degree murder, premeditated murder, murder in the course of perpetration of a kidnapping. Any kind of violence, of course, is unacceptable, but repeat violent offenders particularly deserve a strong response, and that's what they'll get from this district attorney's office. We will continue to cooperate with law enforcement and work closely with them, as we already have, so that we can do our best to bring justice to this tragic situation. And I'll end there. I'll note that because this is still an ongoing investigation and a pending case, and I, as a prosecutor, have certain legal limits on what I can say. There are probably limits to what kind of questions that I can answer or that can be answered by anybody. But I'll just end there. Thank you.
This question is for anyone in law enforcement. Do you know a manner of death, A, and B, was she killed in the vehicle?
It's too early for us to determine place and method of death at this point.
Chief, can you describe the suspect initially, according to the affidavit, was not being cooperative with authorities? Did the suspect ultimately help you find his victim?
At this time, I can't respond. We are still working with that suspect, but at this time, we have not gotten very much information from that individual.
Can you describe how Ms. Fletcher ended up
involved?
Say that again?
May anyone else be charged or involved?
It's still early on. We're still uncovering various leads. This is an ongoing investigation. That's a possibility. But at this time, no one else has been charged.
Chief, can you describe how Ms. Fletcher ended up in Duplex?
We really don't know at this particular time. We worked together to identify various locations, and that was our search concentration, and we're just blessed that we were able to identify this location, and our officers were successful in finding her.
So it was a part of the search?
All right, thank you all for the questions. That's all the information that we have right now. You can send them to the PIO's office if you have any additional questions, and we'll address them there. Thank you.
Look into an incident at the University of Memphis with robbers.
What made you guys move so fast on this case?
Does this have anything possible to do with that?
Some questions answered, or at least asked, with non-specific answers from Memphis law enforcement as this continues to be an open and active investigation into the death, the murder of Eliza Fletcher. Back here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now. So that was the press conference where it was the announcement, of course, confirming what we had already been told on Twitter by the Memphis Police Department's Twitter account, that this was the remains that were found Monday evening, overnight, were confirmed to be that of Eliza Fletcher, the abducted jogger who went missing on Friday, abducted by an individual driving an SUV. All of it caught on video, and they now have that man in custody, they say, according to law enforcement. Wait, we have another feed. Let's go back to this. Hold on.
Why so fast on this case? And there's other people who are still missing, and they've been missing for months and even weeks at a time. But she's been found in days.
Yeah, well, you know, this was a particular situation in which we had every reason to believe that, you know, if we moved quickly, we might be able to save the victim. And I think that was why we acted with the rapidity that we did. And I think that the law enforcement should be commended for being able to act that quickly.
Any idea on the motive?
No, we don't have any further information about that.
Any indication that he tracked her beforehand, or is that the first time he laid eyes on her?
We don't really have any information one way or another on that.
What's your message to the body?
No, that's not something we can go into.
In the neighborhood? What do you want people who live in that neighborhood to know?
Well, look, both law enforcement and the DA's office, right, have as their absolute #1 priority keeping people safe. And tragedies like this are going to happen, but we're going to be doing everything we can to make sure that people can walk the streets without looking over the shoulder and going about their daily business without fear. And that's what we're going to do, and we'll roll up our sleeves and make sure we can do everything we can.
Less than a week as the Shelby County District Attorney.
Yes.
Obviously, this is a big case. What are you going to do to send a message?
Well, I mean, the message that we're doing is what we're sending right now, which is that public safety is our absolute #1 priority. We're going to take repeat violent offenders situations very seriously. Repeat violent offender situations deserve a strong response. That's the kind of response we're going to get from the DA's office, and that is the message that everyone is to take. And they'll see that, in the actions that we take in the coming weeks and months.
This was an exhaustive search. It's been described as an exhaustive search. Was the intensity of this search, was that standard for missing person?
I don't think we did.
It was an exhaustive search, and during it there was another missing person in Memphis, and some of the resources of this search went to try to find that person. Luckily, that person was safe, and found. But we had a missing woman, and everybody banded together. They didn't sleep, they didn't stop trying to find her.
Is this going to be the same kind of energy that you guys are going to have moving forward when others are missing as well, to try to find them within days instead of weeks and months?
Is this the same kind of effort?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we can expect that same kind of effort, yeah. All right, I think that's it for now. I'm going to take care of it.
McNally says that it's
Good go. Some questions about other missing persons cases in the Memphis area and whether or not they will receive the same level of attention. Let's continue to listen in here. More conversation.
What?
That was District Attorney Steve Mulroy, I believe, for Shelby County in really the Memphis, Tennessee area. JB here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now. While we have an audience, and we know that we're going to be losing an audience here after the press conference is concluded, I want to just kind of get this out there. And I had this loaded up in our system. Clearly, there's a blank space. Hopefully, I'll be able to get this on your screen. And here it is. This is another missing persons case in Memphis, Tennessee. And I want to get this out there to as many people as possible. I tweeted this out last night. There was another missing persons case that was resolved, but this one is unresolved as we understand it, according to Memphis Police. And this here on the right side of your screen, I want to make sure I have all my information here correct from my notes. This is Kamiria Mitchell. Kamiria Mitchell last seen approximately 10:30 at night on September 5th, missing from the 4800 block of Bondale Avenue in Memphis. She is said to be 3 months pregnant, age not given, said to have gotten in an argument with her aunt and then ran away. And there is a missing persons case now open, and an active search is underway for Kamiria Mitchell. And so I want to do my part in trying to bring attention to as many of these cases as possible when we have the opportunity to do so, with the audience to do so. So this is another missing persons case that we have in Memphis, Tennessee. And there are countless missing persons cases that we have across the country in various states and in all different walks of life. Whether you are in a rural community or right in the heart of a city, there's just an exorbitant amount of missing persons case. And you heard there the questions that were asked at the end of that press conference, or at least not even the press conference, but the media following the DA, to ask some follow-up questions. Will there be the same level of resources and attention given? And the answer was, well, you heard the answer for yourself. It's just what it really comes down to is the level of media attention that this received. Eliza Fletcher's case received a ton of media attention. And a big reason why, of course, is just because how many people go out for an early morning jog before the workday begins, before school gets underway for kids in the household, and to be abducted just by doing something as simple as an early morning jog was a head-scratching affair for so many people, so many parents especially across the country, who wanted answers as to what happened to this beloved mother and teacher in the Memphis community. But some questions being asked there as well in regards to how this impacts other missing persons investigations in Memphis and the greater Memphis area. JB here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now. Let's go over what we have learned now with this press conference. Not all that much. The beginning of the press conference was a confirmation of pretty much what we had already been told, that the remains that were found Monday evening in Memphis, not far away from the abduction, is that of missing jogger Eliza Fletcher. And some other nuggets of information that the body was found at a vacant duplex apartment. There have been some other charges such as identity theft, theft of property, credit card fraud, and that they had surveillance on the suspect, Cleotha Abston, and because they located the vehicle. And once they were able to establish contact with him himself, there on the right side of your screen in a mugshot, they were able to close in on him. As the one official put it, he made his move, was the words, implying that he was trying to elude law enforcement, but law enforcement was able to apprehend him without incident and bring him into custody, where, of course, you saw him at the beginning of the live streaming coverage this morning in the arraignment in Memphis court. Again, faces multiple charges, including first-degree murder and first-degree murder in perpetration of kidnapping, a story that has just attracted a whole lot of attention, not just coast to coast, but around the world. People asking exactly how a woman can just go for a jog early in the morning. And yes, it was early in the morning. It was 4:30 in the morning before the sun came up, but how you could do something as simple and as common as go for a jog and have an SUV pull up next to you and get abducted from that just regular routine exercise. It, of course, is a troubling thought for so many people who do something very similar in their day-to-day lives. Whether it's going for a run early in the morning or doing so in an area of their community that they don't feel safe. This is by all indications, this is something that is a relatively common activity, where an uncommon occurrence has occurred, one that led to a tragic conclusion, with the result being the discovery of the remains found Monday evening at this vacant duplex apartment not far away from the abduction. Those remains belonging to Eliza Fletcher. Folks, we're going to wrap up our coverage here on Facebook Live and stay here with you live a little bit longer on YouTube. We have to clear out Facebook for some additional live streaming coverage coming your way. Again, from WFLA News Channel 8. Want to let you know you can click on the link in the description on this video for updates on this story. We're going to be covering it. It's on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. And if you're joining us on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live, click on the link in the description. You might have also seen it in the pinned comment, and it will take you over to our written article with all the latest that I'm about to review. Audrey and other commenters, I have not forgotten about you. We're going to kind of go through this one section at a time on YouTube Live and on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. But we're going to say farewell now to our Facebook Live audience. All right, back here with you live on, again, our website, our app, and YouTube. Saying hello to our YouTube audience. You can use hashtag HeyJB, and I will do my very best to answer as many questions as possible. It was an interesting press conference in that they were answering questions and then they weren't. Some of the questions that were starting to come in from various members of the media were poignant questions, and we just were not getting responses. And then that was the public information or communication specialist who then intervened and said the press conference was over. Use hashtag HeyJB. We're going to do just a 5 to 10 minute debrief here. But first, before we do that, really quick, the X's and O's of this terrible story. Eliza Fletcher goes on her early morning run, 4:30 in the morning in Memphis, Tennessee. Part of her routine, getting in her exercise, doing so before the school day starts, before she has to send her kids off to school. How many parents in this country can say that they're just trying to get some things done early in their day before things, before the train leaves the station, so to speak? And that's what does happen with parents when you're working a full-time job and you got kids at home and you're just trying to get in some time for yourself, to get in some exercise, or maybe it's not exercise. Maybe you're doing something for yourself, working on a project, or maybe you have a hobby. You're just trying to find some time for yourself to get some things done. In this case, for Eliza Fletcher, it was just doing some routine exercise, going for a jog early in the morning. until it went tragically wrong. An SUV pulled up alongside her. Somebody got out of that SUV, forced her into the SUV, and that was it. Vanished, gone, disappeared. Missing persons alerts go out. Community starts to ask questions. What has happened? How does a person go for a jog and then get stuffed into an SUV or forced into an SUV where she then disappears? What happened to her? And then, of course, we get the heart-sinking announcement yesterday that we have the discovery of remains not too far away. Those remains, that being that of, confirmed this morning, being that of Eliza Fletcher. Over the weekend as well, the arrest of 38-year-old Cleotha Abston, who has a lengthy criminal history that includes abduction of somebody else in that area, in Memphis, the greater Memphis area. Kemper Durand in 2000, the year being 2000, was leaving a party and was abducted by Cleotha Abston, put in the trunk of that vehicle. And then they went, let him out of the vehicle, or Cleotha Abston, here on the right side of your screen, let him out of the vehicle to withdraw money from an ATM. So the big thing to take away from this press conference is what the DA said, that this was an isolated attack by a stranger. Now, that still doesn't answer all of our questions. Was there any targeting going on? And if there was targeting going on, what was the reason? Was it just as simple as, this is somebody who I think I can get into my vehicle and take advantage of and score a quick amount of cash? Or was there something more elaborate, more sinister at play? Memphis investigators, if they do have an inclination as to why Eliza Fletcher was targeted specifically, they're not giving up that information at this stage of the investigation. Krista Creech, #KJB, is there a connection between Eliza and Abston's first kidnapping victim in 2000? Not that I've seen. I've not seen any established connection. Kemper Durand passing away in 2013, I believe, and no connection that I'm aware of at this time. Again, I'm relying so much on, we are, as local news reporters, we are experts, if you will, in the areas in which we cover. We're hyper localized to best serve our community. It's the same community where we live, where we eat, where we work, where we shop, where we enjoy life. I'm here in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. I know Tampa Bay well. I know Florida pretty well, the state, and all of the various subsections of the state, from Jacksonville to Tallahassee to Miami to Orlando to Daytona to Pensacola, all the way here to Tampa Bay. I'd like to think that I have a pretty good knowledge of this state. Now, I'm not as knowledgeable, of course, on what's going on in Tennessee, but I lean on the reporters, and we have colleagues. I have colleagues that I know personally in Tennessee that have been working on this story. And so we stay in touch, us reporters. It's a very tight-knit community of journalists, and what we try to do is we try to help each other out. And but to my knowledge, there has been no established connection between Abston's first kidnapping victim, Kemper Durand, in 2000, and Eliza Fletcher here in the year 2022. Somebody says no sound. I believe I've sound. Yeah, #KJB, do you know the ages of her children? I have not looked that up. Sunny L, hashtag, and big thank you to Yaya and the rest of our moderators. We need more platforms to post the people that are still missing, at least dedicate some airtime to show photos of them. That's why I brought up Camaria Mitchell. Look, if you're joining us from Memphis, it's an opportunity. Just because we have one family experiencing tragedy this morning and living through their worst nightmare doesn't mean a second has to. We can use the opportunity with the amount of attention this story is receiving to give attention to a story that otherwise wouldn't receive the same level of attention. Get to know, look at this picture, share it, do what you got to do. Retweet me if you'd like, or just go over to Memphis Police Department's Twitter page, retweet it. Let's try to do something good, even in the light of something so terrible. I'm seeing from a commenter that if a family statement has been put out. Let's see if I have that. Let's see if we can share that out. And I'm looking. Oh, here it is. I'm going to read this. This is from. Got it. Sydney Gray, anchor reporter at WMC Action News 5, tweeting out statement from the family of Eliza Fletcher, and it reads as follows. We are heartbroken and devastated by this senseless loss. Eliza was such a joy to so many. Her family, friends, colleagues, students, parents, members of her Second Presbyterian Church congregation, and everyone who knew her. Now it's time to remember and celebrate how special she was and to support those who cared so much for her. We appreciate all the expressions of love and concern we have received. We are grateful beyond measure to local, state, and federal law enforcement for their tireless efforts to find Liza and to bring justice to the person responsible for this horrible crime. We hope that everyone, including media representatives, understand the need for the family to grieve in privacy without outside intrusion during this painful time. Statement by Eliza Fletcher's family. And just an absolutely heartbreaking update for them. When you hear about an abduction, and the suspect being found and the victim not being found, your heart sinks because you know that in all likelihood there is a very realistic possibility that that person who was abducted is deceased. Now, it's not every time. A suspect can be found and the victim be alive and being held somewhere against their will, or just not in the same location. There's alternative outcomes that do exist. However, this is the outcome that you fear because you can almost envision it happening. Why did the abduction occur? And then why was the victim of that abduction not with the suspect at the time that law enforcement intervened? Yeah, it's a brutal outcome. And thank you to this is interactive journalism. This is exactly why it's so great to have an army of so many just incredible folks out there that join us on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, including Charmax too, #KJB, who alerted me to the statement from the family had been released. I do have a lot of screens here, you guys, but there is no amount of screens that can monitor every section of the internet. I do my very best. So thank you to Charmax and others who have been alerting me to other developments, including the one that there was a press conference that was announced. That was very sudden, but glad that we were able to bring it for you, and glad that you're able to listen in and for us to collectively learn more about this story. There is no mention. I know that this is a very grim question, but Viv Photography asking #AJB, have police mentioned if she was sexually assaulted or not? That has not been addressed. Julie H, #AJB, did they say anything about the duplex area where Mrs. Fletcher's body was found being linked in any way to the perp? They didn't at this press conference, but we do know based on media reports out of the area that this was not that far away from where Cleotha Abston was seen cleaning himself, cleaning his vehicle, cleaning his clothing. Hold on a second, folks. Sorry, folks. It was a call from Tennessee and had to take it. So apologies for having to mute the mic there. Yeah, so I'm glad that Ashley brought this up. Hashtag KJB, talk to us about these identity theft charges. Are they from Eliza or someone else unrelated? Look, if there's we can't say definitively. We can't. But let's point out fact. Let's let fact dictate the answer to this question as best as possible. Ashley's asking about the identity theft charges that have been added on here. What is that about? Well, look. Cleotha Abston abducted Kemper Durand, an attorney, back in 2000, and profited off of that, or at least temporarily, short term, by forcing him out of the trunk of the vehicle and going to the ATM and withdrawing cash from that ATM. So that is a good nugget of information to get out there when we talk about these identity theft charges, because if he did try to use Eliza's belongings in any which way, shape, or form to steal her identity for the purpose of withdrawing cash, again, credit card fraud is there too. We have two charges there that are similar and connected, no doubt. Identity theft and credit card fraud. You can't say for certain, but let's not. But look, it is very possible that in the aftermath of the abduction, Cleotha Abston used that credit card, a credit card belonging to Eliza, or could it have been in the form of a check or a credit card, something that was done where he committed the act, allegedly, of identity theft and credit card fraud. Look, might have gone up to an ATM and took cash out, maxed out the cash withdrawal on the credit card. It's very possible. But we don't know. But that's why the previous arrest in 2000, the abduction in 2000, helps guide us in our knowledge of this story. There was something else that I wanted to point out. 616 Love, I want to give some shout outs here as well. Hashtag KJB. There's also a 24-year-old autistic gentleman missing from Texas, last seen in Memphis. His name is Nishad Lindley. Please help spread the word. I'll look for that case as well. Also, oh yes, this is something I wanted to point out. If I can get back to Twitter and get you to, we haven't talked about this yet, but this is important to note as well. Cleotha Abston's brother has been arrested, but as we understand it, and it has been very clear that this is separate, these charges are separate from the Eliza Fletcher case. Let me bring this up. I just want to make sure that I'm reading it directly. Here it is. Mario Abston, 36, charged with possession of a controlled substance with intent to manufacture and sell fentanyl. Possession of a controlled substance with intent to manufacture and sell heroin. And convicted felon in possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. Not said to be connected directly at this time to the abduction and murder of Eliza Fletcher, but also worth pointing out. 36 years old, the younger brother of Cleotha Abston. And he has been charged with an act that was committed as a convicted felon, meaning that he too has a criminal history and he is a felon being charged with these crimes. So a pair of brothers with criminal histories that are now facing very serious charges. One connected to the murder of Eliza Fletcher, another connected to the allegations of drug dealing. 2 or 3 more. I got to get going, folks. Of course, 616. Happy to help. Oh, this is something I do want to bring up. James says, hashtag KJB, again, the people who let this criminal out of prison after all the crimes he committed, they need to do time in federal prison as well. Then maybe this will stop. Look, here's the thing. Here's the thing. There are tiers of offenses when it comes to felonies. Cleotha Abston was sent to prison for a period of I believe the sentence was 20 years. Do I have this right? Yes, 20 years back in 2000. He served 18 years, paroled after with 2 years remaining on his sentence. Look, for abduction, that's a long that is a lengthy time behind bars. There are going to be people out there that are going to say, oh, well, Cleotha Abston should have been locked up for 30 years or 40 years or 50 years. Why was he let out? But if you have to look at this from the outside in, from a law enforcement perspective. The law dictates a certain amount of time that, based on the crime that was committed, that he is to be sentenced to prison time for. He was sentenced to 20 years, let out after 18. It's not look, there have been cases in the past where there has been somebody let out on the streets after committing a dangerous crime after a very, very short amount of time. Relatively speaking, 18 years of a 20-year sentence is a considerable amount of time for the abduction of an individual. It is. And it's not as if, look, it's not as if he was sentenced to 20 years and paroled after serving 3 or 4. I think that optics-wise, that changes things around quite a bit. But I'm speaking here in relative terms to other cases involving the potential for parole and the amount of time that a judge gives to somebody who commits a serious crime, a felony. And so, look, if Cleotha Abston had been sentenced to 30 years and he was paroled after 28 and he did it after 28 years, there would be people saying the same thing. Why was he let out? Why was he let out after 20? I understand the sentiment that James is but this is why we have laws and this is why we have sentencing guidelines to dictate the level of offense that has been committed, of course, based on conviction, and then how much time that person should serve behind bars based on the level of crime committed. So he was sentenced by a judge to 20 years behind bars and served 18 of them. And now he gets out, and a few years later, he's accused of committing this crime, another abduction. It's a repeat offender. You heard the DA say there that they're going to take this extremely seriously, considering that he is a convicted felon. But as far as relatively speaking, that is a considerable amount of time spent behind bars before he was given the opportunity to parole out. So let's also keep that in perspective. Everybody who commits a dangerous crime can't be locked up forever. You can't, if somebody commits a terrible crime, not everybody can be sentenced to life in prison without parole. You can't just permanently keep bad people locked up. There's tiers of offenses, and based on the tier of that offense, that's the sentencing guideline. It was 20 years, paroled after 18. He got out, he committed a serious crime. Or at least he's accused of committing a serious crime. Let's just kind of keep things in perspective. That's so important because, relatively speaking, 18 years served of a 20-year sentence is a relatively lengthy amount of time served given the crime itself. You can make an argument it should have been longer, and that's why we have elected representatives that make these rules. It's why we have people in our law enforcement system in this country to dictate sentencing guidelines, to dictate the level of crimes and the sentences that should be carried out based on conviction. And different states and different jurisdictions are going to have different outcomes. Could an abduction have been a 30-year sentence in a different state, or a 10-year sentence in a different state, or had more laxed parole guidelines in different jurisdictions or different states? Yeah, absolutely. It just depends, and this was the case for Tennessee. Dave Ferg, I'm gonna touch on this briefly because I tweeted about this quite a bit last night, and I want to talk about this. Dave Ferg, hashtag AJB. We all know the streets on this world in this day. We all know the streets in this world in this day and age are unsafe. Why would a lone female go jogging at daft o'clock in the dark? So I talked about this a little bit on Twitter last night. And it was an early morning run. And there are people, countless people in this country who do the same thing, who will go out in the morning for an early morning jog. Why would a lone female go jogging at that hour? It's very simple. It's the best time for her to do it. And there's all of this conversation online about maybe she shouldn't have been out there by herself. Maybe she was out there too early. Why wouldn't you take further steps to protect yourself? Why not? Why would you listen to music? All of these questions that are being asked. And I think it's important to remember the context of this conversation and where things stand currently with this investigation. This is somebody who was just murdered. And there are countless people who do the same thing every day and don't get murdered, don't get abducted, don't fall victim to a serious crime. And I understand that there's this narrative out there, well, this is a cautionary tale. But I noted this earlier. I talked to people who jog that early in the morning. They know the dangers. They know it's a dangerous thing. And to assume that Eliza Fletcher did not take precautions or didn't understand the risks is so naive to think that, to just assume that she wasn't aware of the fact that, look, being out there that early in the morning by yourself comes with risks. I would imagine and I would assume that most people who go for those early morning jogs, if they do decide to do so, they understand that, look, it's a time of day where the sun hasn't come up yet. But to say that it's a cautionary tale and then to offer all of this rhetoric online as to, oh, well, it could have been different if she did this, or maybe she shouldn't have done that. Be careful with the way. I understand that there are some folks out there that have well-placed intentions, well-placed intentions to make this a cautionary tale. I understand that. I understand that you're trying to spread word of so this tragedy doesn't happen again. But how many more cautionary tales do we need before people will actually take caution? I would like to think, this is me speaking now to you guys directly. I would like to think that Eliza Fletcher was aware that there are risks in this world of going out. And to just assume that she didn't take precautions to protect herself, I think that is a naive approach to think about this story without knowing the full context of what happened. At any point of the day, if somebody wanted to pull up to somebody on the side of the road and force them into a vehicle and do so with violent intent, it's an act of evil. And look, it can happen. Unfortunately, evil does exist in this world. And when evil does decide to act, even those who take precautions and do things to defend themselves often fall prey to somebody with sinister intentions. So I understand the back and forth online. I understand how there are some people who are just wanting to talk about this as a cautionary tale. I understand that. But victim blaming is a very, very, very serious thing in the world of social media. And please, let's remember, this is a human being who, based on everything we know, was a treasure for this community, and someone who was deeply loved by her family, her kids, her colleagues at work, and the community at large. And so when you're talking about it from such a semantic-based point of view, just remember that you don't know all of the details about this story, and wanting to use it as a cautionary tale flirts with victim blaming. There's a gray area there, and you just got to be really careful before you post a comment or tweet something out. Just read it. I do. Just read it and try to think, how is somebody else going to read this? Somebody with maybe a different viewpoint or a different upbringing than myself. Just punching out comments where, oh, maybe you shouldn't be out there at this time in the morning. Maybe you should have waited for the sun to come up. Maybe you should have done this, or maybe you should have done that. By establishing that line of thinking, what you are doing is saying that maybe the victim acted in a way that wasn't in her own self-interest. That, to me, is an indirect form of victim blaming. And you just got to be careful, folks. You just got to be careful. Your words matter. Your words matter. Your comments matter. I have this platform on WFLA Now to read your comments because what you say matters. And so just be very, very mindful of the fact that when we're talking about these stories, Eliza Fletcher's best friend might be reading those tweets. Her kids. And it's really important to remember that we're talking about a human being, and that you might think that this is just no one's going to read this comment. No, people read comments, and they matter, and your choice of words matter, and your ideology behind those comments matter. And while your comment to you in your head might feel like you're doing the right thing and saying, look, this is a cautionary tale, and we need to talk about what led up to this person being abducted, why this person was so vulnerable. Just remember that you're talking about a human being, and you're talking about somebody who has other human beings who love and adore her, and that there's so much unknown, to where even if there were so many precautions taken by Eliza Fletcher, what really could have been done to stop her abduction? You say it's as simple as just wait for the sun to come up. What if she doesn't have the opportunity to do so? What if the demands in her life, such as her, responsibilities to her children, her family, her workplace, her employer, don't allow her to go out that early in the morning, or go for a run that late in the morning? And running makes her happy. Exercise makes her happy. What's one to do? Everything seems so simple when you're typing into a keyboard on a touchscreen, on a device in the palm of your hand, but rarely are things that simple. I hope that makes sense to people. And I hope that I don't appear to be somebody who's coming down. I just want people to really think before they type out those types of comments, and think about the optics in which those comments are read in and how they're perceived. It's very important that we take responsibility for our comments on social media, because so much of our human interactions these days are done through social media. And so much can be taken out of context when it comes to the text that you write into a keyboard. And so let's all be very, very mindful of the fact that our comments matter, and that victim blaming is not to be tolerated. I'm not saying that every comment that I read last night was was a form of victim blaming, but you might be committing victim blaming and not even know it. You might be thinking that you're doing the right thing by spreading news of a cautionary tale, but by offering all of these suggestions as to ways that you would, if it were me, I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have gone running this early in the morning. You know, I wouldn't have left this street or made that left turn. Just remember that while your comment reads to you in your mind as one way, it's perceived by others in a different way, is what I'm trying to establish. And that's the most even-keeled and direct response that I can give on this live stream. Thanks, you guys. We got to get going here on WFLA Now. We've got other stories that we're pursuing. We really appreciate you joining us. The very latest on this story is on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. I really appreciate all of our commenters and everybody who used our hashtag system, of course, to interact with us here, and to our a very special thank you to our moderators, Michelle, Yaya, others who have contributed to keeping our comment section a welcoming one. Thank you. And the very latest on this story on WFLA.com, the WFLA app will continue to spread awareness on missing persons cases, continue to bring you the stories that matter, and do so in a way that we can connect with you, and do so in a responsible and rooted in reality fashion. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. The latest in the story, click on the link in the description of this video. Take you over to WFLA.com, the WFLA app.